Okay, all right. It's almost 4:05, so let's get going. My name's David. I'm the CEO of Bottlebooks, and I'm in charge of customer success. We've set up this webinar series a lot because of the coronavirus issues that the world is experiencing now, and particularly because the industry has a lot of trouble selling wine and really connecting with customers. And one incredible response we've seen from this are a spate of online tastings being set up. And Matthew from Bottlebooks has been tracking this. He's been following this. Matthew is a WSET Certified Educator, and he was formerly on the Waitrose drinks team, and he's hosted a number of events and tastings. And so he has a lot of insights and observations, and we've been in touch with our customers. Because Bottlebooks is a network, we're in the middle of a lot of the industry, and we have a kind of unique view on what producers and importers and event managers and retailers are doing around the world. And so we wanted to share this insight with you. In fact, these insights with you on a weekly basis in a webinar series. And each week we'll have a different topic. One might be about Bottlebooks, one might be about what the industry is doing, and we hope to have some great guests on. And today we were very lucky to have Faye Cardwell on. Faye is an event planner who's worked in the wine business for over 15 years. And she has been the director of IEM and event management for leading Italian wineries. Notably, she's also participated in the Born Digital Wine Awards. She has started her own tastings called Core and Vino. So we'll learn all about what she's doing and what she's learned, the technology that she's been using, and the great things and the struggles that she's had throughout the way. And also online we have Jonathan, and Jonathan is the CEO of Bottlebooks. He attended Faye's tasting, so he has a can probably enrich his perspective and your perspective on how his Faye's tastings are going. He's going to talk a little bit about the technology when we have questions about technology. What's also interesting is that for this call, because it's a large group, he's managing the technology aspect of it. So he's making sure that everybody gets in the right place on Zoom, and that everything can be broadcast out. And I think in large groups that can be quite valuable. It's some of the tips and things that you might be able to learn today. So yeah, let's get started. So I wanted to first start off with a little bit, Matt, about the current situation we have going on here in terms of what you've noticed about online and virtual tastings, and what kind of trends you're seeing in the industry, what kind of tastings are happening. Could you give us a kind of overview of what's going on out there?
I'll have a go, yeah. I think one of the first things to point out is that, as everybody has possibly and hopefully noticed, the wine world has certainly not gone quiet during this current situation, and everybody is exploring ways and opportunities to continue to try and replicate the types of things that would have been going on in the industry. We have a number of producers, importers, distributors, retailers, and events as well, wanting to know how they can connect with customers and consumers. And over the past sort of few weeks, few months, we've seen a variety of different ways that people are trying to reach out to the public to talk about their products. And that has been based from producer-led tastings, from importer-led tastings, and even retailer-led tastings. I've had emails come through my inbox and newsletters talking about even restaurants who are trying to get in on the act as well, who don't want to be silent in this vision, sort of show that they still have a service to offer. But there have been many different ways that people have tried to approach this. So with the wonderful world of social media, there was a huge tasting on Good Friday in the UK, which was called a Big English Wine Good Friday, where people were encouraged to go buy a bottle of English wine and then tweet about it, talk about it. And there were a variety of producers who had posted videos talking about their products, and everybody got to share the experience. And if we think about what wine does generally in the world, is it brings people together and allows people to share moments. Other people are hosting videos on their websites with daily newsletters and trying to encourage people to learn more about their wine, get producers in touch with the consumers, and just, you know, keep the community going and keep sort of sharing everybody's passion about the product, which is sort of why we're all involved in it.
Thanks. And just for everybody listening in, there's if you scroll down your mouse, there's a Q&A section at the bottom that you can click on. And so if you have any questions, you can ask them, and I'll ask them of the panelists. Faye, where did this start with you? How did you start getting into the online tasting world? And could you tell us a little bit about that, and then go into, you know, what you're doing now?
So I'm really not very good with technology, and it has just been, as most people, I think, we've just been thrown into a situation where we've had to deal with things and had to start doing things that we would normally not doing. In fact, my social media profiles always say lights organizing, hate center stage. That is completely me. But you know, this situation just has thrown us into that. I did my last small winemakers dinner on the 10th of March, the day that Italy closed down completely. And at that point, I was thinking, okay, well, I'll just have to wait this out until September. I couldn't really, I didn't have any idea of what I was going to be able to do. And then I came up with this name, or a friend came up with this name, and then I started thinking about what was important for a wine event. And actually, there was no reason why I couldn't take what I was normally doing. So where we have wine producers talking about their wines, and we all eat lovely food, and we all have fun. You know, my events have always got a very social aspect to them. My idea is that you enjoy the food, the wine, the company, and you go home having learned something. And I realized that there was no reason why that couldn't be actually just taken online using Zoom, for example. All I needed was to be able to get the wines to everybody. So then I found a distributor that already stocked the wines, some wines that I already knew, and the producers that I know and love. I've been working with Italian wine producers now for 15 years. So he had a really nice selection of people that I really wanted to support. And so we decided to put together Quorum Vino, the wine producers at home, wishing that they could go and promote their wines as they have done, would normally be doing. So it works quite well, I think, together.
Sorry, maybe I would, we have a question and I could bring that out. What about the question of charging for this? So do you charge for it separately? Do you make money off of the sales of the wine from the distributor? Have you thought, you know, what's the process of that? Basically, the question from Nicola is, online tastings are very interesting for customers. Wineries are able to talk directly to their customers. This is great for them, but what about people who normally host tastings and charge for this? And part of it is, you know, are we in danger of cutting the wine educators out?
I think the wine educators do still have a place. Yeah, I think you've got to talk to a distributor, somebody you can work with, and see if you can. They will give you a margin and reseller price on that, on anything that you're selling to people who are then going to participate in your events. But if you've got a good online following and you're well known and well liked for the way that you present and entertain, it's not about being a wine educator, it's about being a wine entertainer. Then yeah, obviously this is a time that we're not going to be able to charge and make the money that we used to make. Nobody is. It's just part of the deal at the moment. But there's still wines for everybody to, there's still ways for everybody to have a bit of the share.
And Matt, have you noticed wine educators getting involved in different ways?
On sort of through social media, you can see that people are trying to come up with a solution. And I suppose for one kind of way to answer the question is, for wine educators, I guess it's different if you're a wine educator who's got a huge social presence and got a huge following. But you could arguably say this is quite a big opportunity for wine educators. If a wine educator could partner with a group of producers potentially, or can partner with a retailer. Now, we all know that different people have different ways of presenting products, and it doesn't always necessarily mean that the producer would be the best person to present their products based on a global scale. So I think it could allow for educators to be able to work together, try and forge relationships with, you know, the industry, and sort of say, look, I will happily host virtual tastings for you. I think it could open a new way of doing business. We don't know how long the world situation is going to continue. I've had a couple of ideas that we've shared internally about how this could, you know, probably turn into a side little business for somebody, but to be able to do a monthly sort of tasting program, I think there are definitely some opportunities out there.
And Faye, what have you noticed? What's been sort of surprising to you, or what's been great about the online tastings to you?
I think the group dynamic. Usually I would host a winemaker's dinner. We'll have a winemaker there, talk about the wines. People like to listen, and people like to turn around, carry on eating and drinking, and nobody really asks any questions. However, with this online format, I find that people are much more willing to ask a question because they're comfortable at home, sitting on the sofa or wherever they are. And so they're more willing to engage than they would do normally. I think that's, for me, has been the most surprising part of taking events online.
And to that point, there's a Q&A section. It says Q&A. If you scroll your mouse down to the bottom, you can click on it and ask a question. Oh, well, Nadia has a question. How can you interact with your audience if they don't have a wine that you're presenting available? Faye, maybe have you had this case, or are you always having, do you always have wines that they have? No, you haven't.
For me, I run it that to be part of Quorum Vino, you have to have the wine. It's got to be, for me, it was really important to create a shared, you've got to have a shared experience. If you don't have that shared experience, you're not going to, in my eyes, but there are other people are doing it in completely different ways, and there are different formats which are working. But for me, it was important for everybody to have the same wine.
And Matt, have you noticed anything where successful tastings where people don't have the same wine?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Wine Society in the UK hosted a Rioja tasting and said to all of their members who are sort of part of their community, pop into the cellar, pop in and you know, go to your wine rack, bring out a bottle of Rioja, and we're all going to sort of have a tasting where we can share our experience. So there is an opportunity, I think, here for retailers and associations to try and build a community for people to be part of. Now, it's going to be almost impossible for everybody to always have the same bottle of wine together. There are ways around it, but I think being able to share that experience and sort of keep that community aspect together, I think it might not necessarily be perfect, but I think there are solutions that you could look at in ways of you know, trying to include everybody and you know, understand that everybody's opinion on products is valuable. And then maybe somebody has enthused about a wine so much that you go, I'm going to go find that. I want to go and drink that, and I want to go and buy it now. So I think there's an opportunity there for everybody.
And a question from Alexis. How many wines are people prepared to buy and open in one tasting? Maybe Faye, you could talk about how you organize your tastings. Is it around one wine? Is it around multiple wines? How does that work?
Well, for me, people sign up for Quorum Vino and they buy a duo box or a solo box. So in the solo boats, they just get 1 bottle of wine to open for the evening, and for the dual boats, they get 2 bottles of wine to open for the evening, because I know a lot of people are home alone and don't want to open more than 1 bottle, or some people perhaps don't usually drink so much, whereas others are quite happy to open 2 bottles. I think any more than 3, you're talking about ended up wasting wine. So yeah, 1 to 3.
Okay, let's talk about where it all goes wrong. Could you keep going and just tell us maybe some funny stories or some difficulties? I mean, we noticed your kid was in the video a little bit before, and sometimes dogs and cats, and who knows, we're all in quarantine, it's all a little mad. I think people are very forgiving, but I think it's interesting for people to hear where we're all trying to figure this new thing out. So Faye, maybe where didn't it go that well for you?
Well, I had a disastrous evening, which I think Jonathan was part of. That was his first evening that he was there, where I'd had a problem with the Wi-Fi and the router, and I don't know what happened, but halfway through my night, I kept being thrown out of my own evening after every about 3 minutes. So I was battling with that for about an hour. But luckily, the winemaker just carried on doing everything, entertaining everybody, and a few people jumped in, and I just jumped in and out when I could. So that was a bit of a disaster. There are also some limitations with using Zoom. I use a lot of the breakout rooms, and the breakout rooms can only be allocated once the meeting has started as well. So that relies on a bit of coordination and a bit of assistance if you want to start using those and allocating people, because there's a lot of things that you end up having to juggle. So it takes a bit of getting used to. But yeah, kids having meltdowns because they need something here and they want a bit of attention, but that's life, and people are sitting at home and they know what life is, and I think that can be appreciated as well by everybody who's participating in online wine events. We're all in the same boat together, and we know sort of what happens, and as you say, everybody's pretty forgiving. We're not doing professional television. We're doing something that's light-hearted and entertaining and fun, and sometimes it'll go wrong, but most of the time hopefully it'll go right.
And Jonathan, maybe I'll bring you in as an attendee of this so-called disastrous tasting when the Wi-Fi wasn't working. What was your experience like seeing that, or the issues? Did it affect your experience at all, or could you tell us a bit about that?
No, I mean, with being locked down, you're looking for different things to do. And I mean, that's why my wife and I signed up for this. And I think Faye mentioned a few things about her tastings, and sort of from a visitor, from a participant perspective, what I think we really enjoyed, my wife and I, was that you basically show up at a set time at 8 o'clock in the evening. Faye sent around ahead of time recipes to everyone for recommended food pairings, so everybody could prepare their own meal and then tune in at 8 o'clock. And then basically the show started. Everybody dialed in, about 40 households, which I wasn't, having done webinars or Zoom conferences, I wasn't exactly certain how that was all going to work. But it just worked. Then I think one of the things that we didn't really know what to expect in terms of the format either. It was really, I think the wineries were obviously very well prepared. Many of them had already had presentations and specific topics they wanted to present on in addition to the wine. A producer from Valpolicella was presenting information about the different styles of wine that are made there, and going into technical details of that. And I think having the moderation and basically doing what you're doing, David, being able to take audience questions and facilitate was really good. And then what I really didn't expect was the breakout rooms, because you are in a group of 40 people. It's not easy to ask questions or easy to interact. But then about you know, every 30 minutes or so, you go to breakout rooms, and then you're in a breakout room with 5, 6, 7 other people, and then you are able to have discussions, and you have discussions and chat about the wine and how it is in quarantine, and then Faye was able to bring us back to the main room and continue the evening. And I think it was a great experience, and it was more than just the tasting. It was the experience.
So Faye,
yeah.
how long do these tastings last for?
It's a dinner date. You know, it's a bit different from perhaps what people are thinking. Perhaps Matthew has been seeing a lot of online wine tastings. This is a dinner date. So we start at 8 o'clock, then we go to sort of 9:15, where we're talking about the region, then the winery and the first wine. Then we have a short breakout moment where people are in groups of people that they know, so that they can actually catch up with other participants that perhaps are in different countries. And then we start again and we go till about 10 o'clock. So, I mean, in all about 2 hours.
And Matthew, because this is a question inspired by Alexis, who's asking, how long are wine tastings if you only have one wine? What are you seeing out there about the length of tastings?
I think it depends on how you want to structure a tasting. So it could be really, really quick. It could be 30 minutes. It depends how many people you've got taking part and how much interaction you have with them. If you think a lot of the time when you have an opportunity to talk to a customer about a tasting, you probably only have about, you know, maximum of 5 to 10 minutes generally to talk to a customer. But if you're going to talk about your winery, your vineyard, your business, then you have the opportunity, even with just one wine, to tell a much bigger story. Or another way of looking at it is that you could run a series of tastings and it's only 30 minutes. So you set it for 30 minutes, but that's 30 minutes with end consumers trying your product, and they would never normally have that time with a producer or with an educator or with somebody talking about the product to them. So it could be as long or as short as you like. And you're right, you know, with one bottle, in terms of wastage, if you're lucky enough to have 2 or 3 of you of drinking age at home, then you could probably try a few more wines, but most people are not going to be lucky enough to be in that situation at the moment. But I guess it depends how you approach a tasting, but there's a variety of ways that you could keep it as long or as short as you like.
So maybe you can shift the conversation now into logistics. And again, for anybody joining, if you scroll your mouse down, there's a Q&A button at the bottom and you can ask questions. And so we're asking questions of our panelists. Today we have Matthew from Bottlebooks, who has been following the online virtual tastings that are going on, and has also conducted many tastings beforehand, and so knows all about tastings. And we have Faye Cardwell, who is hosting online tastings, with the title Core and Vino. Maybe Faye, how can people sign up for your tastings?
I'm in the process at the moment of just sorting out Core and Vino round 2, because this is a series. You know, my format is perhaps quite different from other things that I think Matthew's seen. Well, there are lots and lots of different formats around, but this is a series. Anyway, we're going to launch the next series, I hope, tomorrow or the day after. And then I'm probably also going to do a round 1, take 2 of the round 1. But it'll all be on my website in the next couple of days.
And is it
FayeCardwell.com.
Okay, great. Just say it again for everybody.
FayeCardwell.com.
Great, and we'll share it with everybody after the chat. So on to logistics. We have a couple of logistics questions. One, and maybe Faye, you could just start talking. Nick's asking, how do the logistics work getting the wine? So could you talk a little bit more about working with a distributor, any challenges you've had, particularly maybe in country versus out of country, if you're even doing anything out of country, or how it's working?
I have to say I'm working, so also, I forgot, I also have a website, quorumvino.wine, as Jonathan knows, because he gave me a hand to set it up the other day, quorumvino.wine, so information will be on there later this week. The logistics, so I remembered of the quite a few distributors that I've met here in Bavaria, that there was one in particular that I liked, and he manages all the logistics without a problem. So he ships all over the EU. So we get wines. In fact, many of the participants for Quorum Vino round one were in Belgium, were in the UK. I had people in Italy, France. So yeah, you just have to find somebody who has a decent size and capacity. At the moment, they're all a bit snowed under because a lot of people are ordering more wine online, even though they've lost all the sales for the restaurants. Then a lot of online wine sales have really gone through the roof. But yeah, I've not had a problem at all with the logistical side of that.
Yeah, and particularly there's a question from Taryn. South Africa is in a very kind of extreme situation right now. They're really an export market for wine, and there's no exports right now. So Taryn is asking, and maybe this is a question for everybody. Maybe I'll just start with you, Faye. In South Africa, no wine sales are currently allowed. How would you keep a wine brand on the top of the mind digitally? I mean, do you have any, maybe we could just brainstorm a bit. I think everybody in South Africa is searching even harder for answers than everybody else.
I think the format that Matthew mentioned earlier about you can do sort of a, whatever your flagship grape variety or wine is, and then sort of say, guys, rate the cellar, rate your own cellar, rate your supermarket, whatever you can get a hold of, and then have an online event where you're talking about what you do, perhaps what you do differently, what people have, what makes yours, what's your USP, whilst people are still drinking something that's perhaps similar to what, if they can't find your exact wine, but something similar, and then it's like, oh well, you know, we hope that when this is over, then you'll be able to drink this and keep people reminded of your brand.
And Matthew, yeah, what are you seeing out there?
I think it's what can you do to keep to promote your brand sort of now digitally? If you're used to having a bunch of people hand sell your product in a shop, which is wonderful, having somebody to be able to talk about a product, that for the foreseeable future, and even to a much greater extent in South Africa, where you can't sell, buy, do anything at all, but you know, keeping your social media presence out there, talking to your customers and saying, look, we will host a virtual webinar talk about our winery and our wines. If you've got any in the, you know, in the cupboard, in the cellar, crack one open, come and join us, share your experience with that as well. I suppose it's worth pointing out as well that, you know, wine sales might be banned in South Africa. It is deemed an essential item in the UK. And therefore, why not host, you know, a similar sort of event and talk to your distribution partners in the UK, tell them that you have producers and wine enthusiasts who want to talk and want to share their products. So don't just think, you know, about your own market. The fact that you don't have to visit a country to host a virtual tasting could allow you to connect to 20 different countries at the same time that you would never have been able to do in the past.
And Jonathan, I wanted to also bring you into this. I know you've had some high-level conversations about logistics about South Africa. Maybe you can let us know about some of the conversations that you've been having and the solutions that people are looking to.
Yeah, it's been very interesting because you know, as virtual tasting started to take off, you know, we thought that there could be, it was quite interesting coming from a digital background, but of course, with digital, you think that you're going to miss you're not going to have the wine, and having the wine and that personal, the personal connection is really important. And so we started looking around to see what other businesses were doing around wine logistics. in addition to shipping full bottles. And we came across a couple of examples which are not new by any means. It just seems that they, though probably had good timings for better or for worse, was something that they were already doing. And one of those was or is a company called Vinovai out of France, who has for several years now been doing rebottling, and they can take a single bottle of wine and convert it into 36 2-deciliter samples, put it in a box, and you could drop it in a mailbox to send anywhere in the world. And so that's a very interesting way, especially if you're a producer that doesn't have a lot of wines or want to share some of the premium wines with your trade partners, but can't afford to send them each a bottle of their own. And we also see in Germany, Wine Plus also has a rebottling solution. So there's a lot of innovation, I think, going on in logistics in the industry to try and help bridge that gap that's keeping us apart.
Great. And so what happens, how do people promote how people are promoting the virtual tastings? How are they getting people to join webinars and virtual tastings? Matthew, what are you seeing people doing on social newsletters? What seems to be working?
Newsletters, definitely. I'm receiving several daily from different retailers and people that I'm signed up to, sort of posting whether it's an online wine course that's coming up that allows people to join. It could just be videos that people are doing as opposed to live virtual tastings. And obviously social media is a huge part of connecting with the world that's going out there. It's sort of safe to say that there is one piece of news out there at the moment and there's not a lot else going on in the world. So if you log on to your typical news website, you know what's going to be there. So I think people are moving over to social media to connect a little bit more and get different messages out there. And I think people will be spending more time seeing what's going on social media and connecting with people. So that's certainly, you know, a way to do it and just to get your message out there to people as much as possible.
And Faye, what have you done to promote your tastings?
My tastings were just promoted through my personal network. I also make sure that I keep the number at a closed number, because for me it's not just a wine, but it's a social event. So I want to make sure that we're in a number of people feel comfortable with and that we're able to manage. So I limited it at 40, and I will also limit the next one to perhaps 50. So that's quite easy to fill through my personal network, really.
And Jonathan, we have some tools in Bottlebooks. What are you seeing people, how are they using Bottlebooks to promote tastings?
Yeah, so this is our advertisement part, you could say. But when we, obviously, I guess most people know that we had partnered with ProWine to work with them on their online directory this year. And when that was postponed until next year, we started looking around at what was going on and how businesses were starting to promote themselves in the meantime. And we were looking around and seeing that different, like association websites in particular, were putting up single pages on their site with a list of producers and links to their online shop. And so we saw a lot of people just trying to get visibility that they were there, they have online shops, and they had stories to tell. And so we adapted our online directory and set up our first public directory called directory.bottlebooks.me, where everybody at ProWine and now everybody else can post their wines. They can have all the searches, post stories, videos, tasting videos out the winery, and then of course links to your online shop. And it's a free service. if you the only limitation is how many wines you're able to put in, but all of your events, tastings, links to your tastings, links to your webinars, just to help people get the word out there that about the ways that they're still distributing the wines, the tastings are holding, and so on and so forth.
And Matt, maybe we had a question about connecting. We talked a lot about consumers, connecting with consumers, but we had a question about connecting with the trade. What are you hearing about? I think really the trade right now is retailers. What are you hearing about, or have you heard anything about anybody? What retailers are doing, or if they even have time to look for new wines, or if there's anything that's been successful in that regard?
From my discussion with the retailers, everything's on a bit of a pause, in the sense that the most important thing right now is ensuring that food is on their shelves. But business will continue to happen and needs to continue to happen as well. And I think if you look at, so Jonathan was talking about Vinovai, I think there is going to be a difficulty of producers being able to send the samples to the buyers as they would normally be. And there's with having sort of small format samples and potentially having a directory where buyers and industry people can go on to sort of see what wines could be available in small format samples, sign up and register for that, and then those samples can be delivered direct to somebody's door. If people are not going to the office anymore, the logistics side of things are going to be much more difficult. But it's also an opportunity, I think, for retailers now to consolidate all of the information that they've got and be prepared to change the format as well. Just sort of to link it in a little bit to the two questions we've got about sort of post quarantine and the ongoing tastings. I know of a certain retailer who do current kind of tastings with their customers, looking for a solution to be able to do at-home tasting. So at the moment, if they were preparing tastings for customers, they would be a minimum of 6, maybe 8, maybe 12 people going around to a customer's home, and that being their night for a tasting. Obviously that can't happen anymore, so there needs to be a solution. And from the quantity perspective, this is where sort of smaller sample sizes could come in to have a future post, or depending on how long this period goes on for being people, for allowing people to be able to adapt how they connect with consumers as well. So I think definitely, people are looking into it. Just some of the things are not necessarily as quick to be able to organize as others.
And Faye, I just want to get your thoughts on that before we do our final topic. Have you seen anything in the trade? I know you've organized events for consumers and for trade in the past and made those connections.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything interesting, or is it what's going on?
To be honest, most of 90% of my business is trade tastings. I organize trade and press tastings. So yeah, I've got some of my clients. We had to cancel events that we were going to do in Belgium and Germany with trade and press. They were cancelled, so we're now thinking about different formats, and they just have some bureaucracy to get through. But yeah, anything that anybody wants to do by the end of the year has got to be in a different format. So it's got to be online, it's got to be wines shipped to them, and then do some sort of online dinners, seminars, masterclasses, whatever. But that's definitely going to be the way forward for the rest of the year.
Great. And so the final question is this going to, are online tastings going to continue post-lockdown? Do you think that the demands of the consumers have now changed to some degree? Faye, will you continue to do these?
Yeah, I think that this time that we've all had at home has sort of helped us all reassess a bit our priorities in life. And one of the things that I've been doing with Quarantino is realizing that that people actually really like the idea of being able to stay at home and socialize. So the feedback I've had from my participants has said, yeah, I would be interested in doing this format again, even after social distancing measures have been taken away, if it's something that interests me. So I think for it to really continue, then we've got to make sure that we're able to put some content which is interesting and some other elements. It can't just, you know, it's got to have something that's worthwhile. But yeah, I do believe that this is interesting format for lots of people. You know, you've got small kids at home, you can't get babysitter, or you've broken your leg, or you want to just not use the car for whatever reason, you don't want to travel. It's a great way of being able to still enjoy things. I think this time will have opened up a lot of people's eyes to that there are different ways of doing lots of things. So yeah.
And Matt, what do you see? What do you see for the future of online tastings?
I think mirror a little bit what Faye says. I think as if when lockdown ends, people are going to try and flock out and go and do some of the things that they haven't been able to do since. But if you look at it from a producer perspective, potentially at the moment, you've got, you know, people flying around the world to run these tastings, and there's already been a huge backlash about the amount of travel people are doing. And if that means that a winemaker can pop down to their cellar, turn on a video, connect with a couple of hundred or a few thousand different consumers around the world without having to leave their house and go away from their family for a day, for a week, however long that time is, I think this situation will allow people to realize that while ever personal contact is amazing and it can't be replicated, there are certain ways that you could probably do more interaction with a hobby that you may have, which is enjoying finding new wines and learning about new wines without actually having to leave your home. So I think it could open up many, many opportunities and certainly make things much, much easier for people in the future if they are still to sort of embrace this way of going. And there will be a certain amount of hesitancy from people going, well, I'm allowed to go out, but I don't know whether I should be going out. And it's probably going to take, you know, many, many months when the situation returns to the new normal, before it really does return to anything based, you know, similar to what we had before.
And Jonathan, what's Bottlebooks investing in? What are we going to be doing? Where do we see the future?
Well, I think it's very challenging times, but for a digital business, it was sort of what I think we were kind of designed for, and what we see with the digital events that are going on is that they share many of the characteristics of physical events in terms of needing to collect the information, distribute the information to all the participants, allow people to plan what they're going to do. And so we have been quite excited that we're going to be able to support the digital events. We have been excited to help Via Vinum, for example, in Austria, shift their event online. And that's really, I think, what also helped drive us in the direction that we have with the directory is just helping people get found. And so I think it's going to be a challenging year for everyone. But I think it's exciting to see how much innovation is going on. Yeah, as you have seen in previous ups and downs with the economy, the economy can go up and the economy may go down, but consumers are still drinking, and they're still out there curious and wanting to learn and wanting to enjoy nice evenings. And so I think that's an opportunity for the trade.
Great. So I think that's it. We'll wrap it up. So it's, I think we covered a lot of ground. We are going to do these every week, and we will have another one on this topic. If you guys want us to, please let us know what you thought. We're going to send you an email. If you want to get in touch with Faye, we'll give you contact information. If you want to do our online tastings, coramvino.wine, I believe. Is that correct, Faye? Oh. we'll send you the information. If you want to talk about Bottlebooks, talk to Matthew. We'll send you his information. We will send you a presentation with some thoughts, the link to the video, and we'll send you the link to the next webinars we're doing. The next one is going to be on a new portfolio feature that we've released with Bottlebooks that allows you to really robustly manage your wine information, which is quite exciting for us. And after that, we already have some attendees for doing videos, including videos under this current lockdown, which is another way to connect with customers. So thanks a lot. Please give us feedback. Thanks for attending. Thanks again, Faye, for the last minute, Jonathan and Matthew, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.